Michael Anderson was accused of shooting 5 teens in Central City back in 2006, but federal prosecutors say he was not the one responsible.
And instead, they're pointing the finger at Telly Hankton, a man who's been called the crime boss of New Orleans.
Alleged 3G gang pleaded not guilty to charges of murder, racketeering, and drugs and weapons.
Police are still looking for these 2 suspects, Kentrell, Hickerson, and Kevin Lynch. Warrants are out for their arrest, and when they are captured, they'll each be held on a $2 million bond.
As part of a push to lower the city's jail population due to the threat of the coronavirus, an accused drug gang ringleader was released on his own recognizance last.
In today's deep dive, we're exploring the underworld of New Orleans, focusing on the notorious gang leaders who have left an indelible mark on the city. From Telly Hankton's reign of terror with the Hankton Enterprise to the tragic rise and fall of Glynn McCormick and the D-Block gang, these figures have orchestrated some of the most violent and ruthless criminal enterprises in the region. We'll also look into the chilling case of Kentrell Black Hickerson, whose leadership of the 3G gang brought devastation to Central City, and the audacious criminal activities of Corey Chef Expose and his cutthroat City Snake gang. These stories are not just about crime, they're about the relentless pursuit of power, the impact of violence on communities, and the complex web of justice that seeks to dismantle these dangerous organizations.
Officials are calling a major bust. Investigators say they've taken a dangerous gang off the streets of New Orleans.
Scott, the gang is called the 6th Ward D-Block, and District Attorney Leon Canizero says the 11 men who make up the gang have terrorized an area of the 6th Ward near Dumaine and Broad Street for years. Right now, 10 men are in custody. All are charged with racketeering. The men, as you see here, are Lance Prince, Sheldon Jackson, Mark Quinn Lewis, Blake Ricks, Nathaniel Brown, Torin Duhon, Jamal Howard, Terrell Muse, Cecil Martin, and Glynn McCormick. On the run is 20-year-old Darnell Ellis. Leon Canizero says the men operated in the 2600 block of Dumaine Street. Canizero says this is the first time in more than 10 years that a local prosecutor has used the racketeering statute against the gang.
As part of a push to lower the city's jail population due to the threat of the coronavirus, an accused drug gang ringleader was released on his own recognizance last week. He didn't last 4 days before he was shot. Investigative reporter Mike Perlstein has exclusive details.
Due to the threat of the coronavirus, Glynn McCormick was released from Orleans Parish Jail Thursday. He had been awaiting trial as one of the ringleaders of the notorious drug gang known as D-Block. Here's the ankle monitor McCormick was wearing Sunday when he was cut down by a hail of bullets. Most people following stay-at-home orders, records show McCormick visited the Dumaine Street drug hotspot every day since his release.
And he frequents that place the entire time he's out.
When McCormick was first indicted in 2018, his bail was set at $1 million. Judge Daryl Durbany dropped that to $150,000 more than a year ago, then down to a free signature bond with a curfew last week.
So when he released him with no restrictions other than the 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. curfew, basically signed a death warrant, and the judge failed miserably.
We're diving into another shocking case from the streets of New Orleans, this time focusing on the tragic and swift downfall of Glynn McCormick, the alleged leader of the D-Block gang. This notorious gang, named after the area near Dumaine and Broad Streets where McCormick once lived, has long been associated with trafficking and violence in the Treem neighborhood. McCormick's story took a dramatic turn when he was released from jail on a reconnaissance bond, a decision made due to concerns over the coronavirus pandemic. Just 2 years earlier, McCormick's bail had been set at $1 million due to his extensive criminal history. But in a surprising move, Orleans Parish District Judge Daryl Durbiny reduced his bail multiple times, eventually leading to his release on what seemed like a technicality. But McCormick's freedom was short-lived, less than 4 days, to be exact. On Sunday afternoon, McCormick was deleted in a hail of bullets at the very drug turf he once controlled. His release conditions included wearing an ankle monitor and following a curfew, but despite these measures, McCormick returned to his old stomping grounds immediately after his release. Surveillance data showed that McCormick spent his brief time of freedom revisiting the same neighborhood he was known to frequent, even with the state's stay-at-home orders in place. The deletion of McCormick has sparked outrage, with many pointed fingers at Judge Durbiny for what some are calling a reckless decision. Raphael Goyenesh, president of the Metropolitan Crime Commission, stated bluntly that the judge has blood on his hands for allowing McCormick's release with minimal restrictions. The decision has also drawn sharp criticism from District Attorney Leon Canizzaro, who argued that McCormick's deletion was entirely avoidable and served no public safety purpose. Adding to the complexity of this case is the presence of Johnny Johnson, a co-defendant in the same racketeering case, who was released under similar conditions. Shockingly, monitoring records show that Johnson was at the scene of McCormick's deletion within minutes, raising further questions about the circumstances surrounding this tragic event. McCormick's attorney expressed disbelief at the violent end of his client's life, describing the deletion as totally unexpected. However, the speed and violence of McCormick's deletion have left many in the community in shock, with the incident serving as a stark reminder of the dangerous world of gang life and the often tragic consequences that come with it.
2 men in the alleged 3G gang pleaded not guilty to charges of racketeering and drugs and weapons.
Police are still looking for these two suspects, Kentrell Hickerson and Kevin Lynch. Warrants are out for their arrest, and when they are captured, they'll each be held on a $2 million bond. WDSU anchor Rachel Wolf was in court today and has details.
18 alleged members of the 3NG gang were arraigned in court today, all pleading not guilty to the crimes they are charged with. It is the beginning of what many expect to be a long and complicated criminal proceeding. The state says the 3NG gang ran a criminal drug enterprise that, quote, promoted a climate of fear through violence, and that half of the suspects are responsible for 10 murders.
This was unprecedented, what you saw today. In all those years I've been here, I've never seen anything like this.
We parents, we want to see what's going on with our child. We not criminals.
Tensions ran high inside and outside of a packed hearing at criminal court today. 18 members of an accused Central City gang arraigned today in criminal court. The case is so big and the accused crimes so heinous, added security was called in.
WDSU News anchor Rachel Wolf explains why this case could pose a legal problem for the city.
In all those years I've been here, I've never seen anything like this in terms of the arraignment. 20+ defendants, security at a maximum. It was unreal.
Security was tied inside Judge Camille Burris's courtroom as 18 alleged members of the 3NG gang heard the 29-count indictment against them, which includes gun and drug charges and racketeering.
And I think that is a shame and wrong.
Outside, family vented their frustrations after being turned away when the courtroom was full.
I want to be in there when they saying this about my son. I want to be right there and see what's going on with mine. That's my child up in there. He haven't been found guilty of no crime.
The state says the group ran a criminal drug enterprise in Central City that, quote, promoted a climate of fear through violence.
We're delving into the chilling story of Kentrell "Black" Hickerson, the notorious leader of the 3NG gang, who was just handed a 100-year sentence for his role in leading one of New Orleans' most violent criminal enterprises. The 3NG gang, named after its home turf at 3rd and Galvez Streets, has been active in Central City for years, using violence to dominate the drug markets. This gang's rise to power left a trail of bloodshed across the city, including some of the most tragic and high-profile deletions New Orleans has seen. Hickerson, now 36, was convicted of racketeering and conspiracy to distribution, charges that stem from his leadership in the gang's drug-dealing operations. Orleans Parish Criminal District Court Judge Camille Burris sentenced Hickerson to 100 years at hard labor in state prison. This sentence reflects the severity of the crimes he was convicted of, as well as his history as a repeat offender, which District Attorney Leon Canizzaro's office emphasized in court. During his trial, which spanned 2 weeks, Hickerson's former associates took the stand and provided testimony about his role in the gang's activities. They alleged that he was responsible for the deletions of Durrell Duke Pooler in October 2008 and Omar Bro 5 months later. Witnesses also claimed that Hickerson either directly committed or ordered several other deletions to solidify the gang's control over the Central City drug trade. One of the most haunting aspects of this case is that not all of the 3NG's victims were intended targets. A high-profile victim was rapper Renata Magnolia Shorty Lowe, who was caught in the crossfire during an attack primarily aimed at Jerome "Man" Hampton, in December 2010. Magnolia Shorty and Man Man were both deleted as they sat in a car in New Orleans East, highlighting the violence that permeated the gang's activities. Hickerson's 100-year sentence marks a significant development in this case, but it also raises questions about the ongoing impact of gang violence in New Orleans. As Hickerson appeals his conviction, the legal process continues, and the community remains watchful of the outcomes that will follow. This case serves as a reminder of the complexities involved in addressing gang-related crime and the ongoing efforts to bring justice to those affected. Stay tuned as we continue to bring you updates and deeper insights into this case and others like it, offering a comprehensive look at the challenges faced by communities grappling with gang violence. We're diving into the story of Corey Dachef Exposé, the alleged leader of the Cutthroat City Snake Gang, a notorious drug ring that claimed territory in New Orleans' lower 9th Ward around Flood and Marais Streets. Expose, who has a long history of criminal activity, just received a 20-year prison sentence under the state's habitual offender law. But this case is far from straightforward, and there's a lot more to unpack. Expose, now 33, chose to accept a flat 20-year sentence rather than risk facing life behind bars. His latest conviction stems from a 2009 arrest for attempted drug possession. But that's just one chapter in a criminal career that spans over a decade. Back in 2000, Expose pleaded guilty to possession with intent to distribute and was sentenced to 5 years. Then, in 2005, he received a 30-month sentence as a multiple offender after pleading guilty to drug possession. The plot thickens with a separate case involving Expose and 8 others, many of whom are related. They were indicted last September under a rarely used state racketeering law, accused of various drug offenses. These charges aren't just about small-time dealing, we're talking heavy volumes of drugs and a sophisticated operation. The case is still pending, and Exposé remains a key defendant. What's particularly interesting is that several members of this alleged gang have been featured in a YouTube video where they're seen cooking up drugs and flaunting their lifestyle on camera. This kind of brazen behavior has made them a prime target for law enforcement, who are now using an obscure state racketeering law to connect the dots between these seemingly isolated crimes and paint a broader picture of organized gang activity. Among those indicted alongside Expose is Bruce Baldhead Carter, who has his own criminal past, including a 2004 conviction for aggravated second-degree battery, for which he was sentenced to 7 years in prison. Court records show that Carter and Exposé have had a drug-related relationship dating back at least 14 years. The others indicted include Reginald Pookie LaFrance, Walter Lil Walt Thomas, Theodore Taz Keys III, Bylal Denley, Tinekia Washington, Nikisha Warren, and Ronald Rouleau Expose, who is Corey Expose's brother.
Michael Anderson was accused of shooting 5 teens in Central City back in 2006, but federal prosecutors say he was not the one responsible.
And instead, they're pointing the finger at Telly Hankton, a man who's been called the crime boss of New Orleans. WDSU News reporter Travis Mackler is here with what this means for Anderson, who was first charged for this.
Well, most likely nothing, because his convictions were vacated years ago. But the fact the feds now say Hankton is the trigger man could prove detrimental at his upcoming trial. On this quiet Central City street corner today, no one wanted to talk about the killing that happened almost a decade ago. It's always been rumored that reputed crime boss Telly Hankton could be involved, and now the feds believe that's true. In a federal filing before Hankton's June murder trial in federal court, the feds say they believe he pulled the trigger on an assault rifle, killing 5 teens. Prosecutors want to use that information against Hankton, even though he's never been charged with the...
There are serious questions tonight surrounding the district attorney's office's witness protection system. This after a man whose brother testified in a high-profile case Saturday night. It's a story we first broke earlier today on WDSU.com. The victim's brother testified in the trial of Telly Hankton, also known as one of the most dangerous men in New Orleans. WDSU reporter Tiffany Bradley is on your side with what this killing could mean for the future of...
New Orleans police have confirmed that a 61-year-old man shot to the side of this Jazz Daiquiri and Lounge on Claiborne Avenue Saturday night is indeed the brother of a man who was a key witness in the Telly Hankton trial last month. A brutal uptown could be linked to the city's most dangerous criminal, who's now behind bars. Curtis Matthews, the co-owner of this daiquiri shop, was gunned down in front of his business Saturday night. But this shooting comes days after a high-profile criminal, Telly Hankton, was sentenced to life in prison. Curtis Matthews was the brother of the man who helped put Hankton behind bars. Back in September, John Matthews testified he was almost certain Hankton shot Darnell Stewart in front of his daiquiri shop in May 2008.
Criminals is now the center of a federal indictment, but the feds didn't stop with 36-year-old Telly Hankton. 12 of his family members and alleged associates were charged today in connection with a violent drug ring.
We went to the neighborhood where the Hanktons live to get reaction from the family to today's charges. In the 1900 block of Josephine Street, just about everyone is family. The Hankton family, labeled by law enforcement as a violent drug trafficking organization, but Hankton family members and neighbors say that characterization is both unfair and untrue.
Don't listen to everything the media has to say, because the media don't know. If you was around around the Hankton family, you would know them, and everything is not the truth.
Still, in an early morning sweep, federal agents rounded up Shirley Hankton and others related to or associated with the family.
Shirley Hankton is a wonderful woman, a wonderful grandmother.
In all, 13 people have been named in this federal indictment with charges ranging from conspiracy and money laundering to drug dealing and murder. The government says Telly Hankton is the leader of the group. Investigators allege the criminal activity dates back more than 15 years, spans 2 states, and includes 4, 2 of which happened here at the Jazz Daiquiri Lounge on Claiborne.
The city's most dangerous criminal is scheduled to start today. A judge continued Edward Allen's first-degree until today. Prosecutors say that Allen took part in the shooting of Jesse Reed back in 2009. Allen is said to have committed the crime with Telly Hankton. Back in October, the district attorney's office argued to have Allen's trial pushed back until after Hankton's trial due to a concern for witness safety. But
we're diving into one of the most notorious criminal cases to come out of New Orleans, the story of Telly Hankton, Andre Hankton, Walter Porter, and Kevin Jackson, all key members of a violent street gang known as the Hankton Enterprise. This gang, led by Telly Hankton, ruled the streets of New Orleans' Central City neighborhood, dealing drugs and leaving a trail of violence in their wake. The Hankton Enterprise's criminal reign came to a head in 2004 when a deadly turf war broke out between them and a rival gang led by Brian Broussard. This bloody feud escalated into a series of brutal shootings, resulting in at least 7 deletions. 4 of these violent encounters became the focal point of the charges that ultimately brought down the Hankton Enterprise. One of the most chilling incidents was the deletion of Darnell Stewart, a member of Broussard's gang. Stewart had been involved in the deletion of Telly's cousin, George Hankton. Seeking revenge, Andre and Telly tracked down Stewart in broad daylight on Claiborne Avenue. After a high-speed chase, Telly jumped out of the car, and after Andre rammed Stewart with their vehicle, Telly stood over Stewart and hit him 10 times, deleting him on the spot. This cold-blooded execution was caught on surveillance footage from a nearby daiquiri shop, footage that would later play a crucial role in the case against them. But the violence didn't stop there. About a year later, Telly hired Walter Porter to take out Jesse Reed, another member of Broussard's gang, as further revenge for George's deletion. With the help of Kevin Jackson, they tracked Reed down and executed him in a gruesome attack, hitting him 50 times. Telly, already in prison for his role in Reed's deletion, continued to orchestrate violence from behind bars, ordering the deletion of the daiquiri shop owner who had provided the crucial surveillance footage to the police. The daiquiri shop owner survived an assassination attempt in 2010, but the following year, his brother was not so lucky. Porter, following Telly's orders, deleted the brother in what appeared to be a revenge deletion. The Hankton Enterprise's reign of terror finally came to an end in 2014 when a federal grand jury indicted Telly, Andre, Porter, Jackson, and 9 others on charges including violations of the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, RICO, drug trafficking, illegal gun possession, and violent crimes in aid of racketeering. Their trial, held 2 years later, was a massive affair with dozens of exhibits and testimony from over 70 witnesses. The jury delivered a mixed verdict, convicting the defendants on some charges while acquitting them on others. This case serves as a stark reminder of the deadly consequences of gang violence and the relentless pursuit of justice by law enforcement to bring those responsible to account. As we wrap up our exploration of New Orleans' most infamous gang leaders, it's clear that the impact of their actions continues to resonate throughout the city. From the courtrooms where justice is sought to the neighborhoods still scarred by violence, the legacies of these gangs are felt every day. While many of these leaders are now behind bars, their stories serve as a stark reminder of the challenges law enforcement and communities face in the fight against organized crime. As New Orleans continues its journey towards healing and recovery, these cases will remain pivotal in understanding the city's ongoing struggle with gang violence. Stay tuned for more deep dives into the world of crime and justice as we uncover the stories that shape our world.